Hi there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, worldwide TV network, iTube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, worldwide iHeartRadio, everything like that, all the platforms around the world. So this is a special show because I haven't done a Zoom interview in, God, I think in like 3 weeks. It's been a long time. However, this one is special, and this is special because of the topic. I have not talked about topics of this. I haven't even mentioned Black Lives Matters on any of the shows. No one's asked me in any of the interviews that I've done, which is kind of fascinating. AJ, who are you and where are we coming from? Where are you today?
Hey, Brian. I'm, first of all, happy to be here with you. I'm actually in Henderson, Nevada, although you can tell by my background that my spirit is in Hawaii.
Well, that's the funny part about everything because everything's been going, well, everything's starting to open up again. And I'm usually in Nevada and I love Henderson, so I get it. Let's talk about this film. This film, I did not expect to like it. I did not expect the opening of everything. And I'm like, okay, it's just going to be another film. No, it's not just another film. This film is really interesting. Talk about how you have the title, because I know what it's like to be stopped while walking while in Beverly Hills, walking too fast in Beverly Hills, walking in Franklin, Tennessee to go do my shows with a backpack with these headphones on, just listening to my music. And that's strange. You go from there, and I'm going to tell you my experience.
Oh, sure. Well, this journey for me, I'm 57 years old, and when I was 48, I was stopped for going for a walk in my own community. And that hadn't been the first time that I had been stopped. Usually it was for driving. And of course, I'd been followed in stores many times, and the same old stories that most of us face, right? But in this particular instance, in June of 2012, when I was going for a walk in my own community and got stopped, it was a game changer for me, because one officer that stopped me and accused me of breaking into homes, but couldn't offer any proof of any break-ins that day, that week, or that month, turned into 3 officers. And I felt like my life was in danger on the side of that road. And after I got out of there safely, thank God, I was able to reach out to NAACP, the Human Rights Commission, the internal affairs for that police department, and I filed reports about the treatment that I received. And all I wanted really was an apology and a promise to do better. But instead, I became a target of harassment for about a year from that police department. And so that's how this journey got started, with me just wanting an apology and a promise to do better. And when that was rebuffed, and when I was harassed and my life threatened, I decided I needed to step up and do more, because what about all the people who didn't have a voice, that didn't have the ability to call an attorney to get help? I figured I better do this for other people.
Where was this when you got stopped?
This was in Howard County, Maryland. And Howard County, Maryland is an interesting place because the developer, James Rouse, in the 60s, he chose Columbia, which is part of Howard County, to create a city, a brand new city that was based on racial equity and people getting along together. But Howard County, the greater county, they didn't get the memo. And so there's always been this tension, this racial tension throughout that county. And they're not living up to the vision that James Rouse had for unity, for sure.
The interesting thing about that, we have 7.3 million views a day and counting. Nobody beats us in the world. And a lot of people don't know about us, and I like it like that. The reason why I say that, when I was last stopped walking in Franklin, Tennessee, I was going to do the shows where we have the viewers on that. And I said, my friend had a slight heart attack. He had bad health, and I didn't want him to come pick me up. So I said, I'll just walk over there. I'm used to walking. So I walked over there, and it was a 45-minute walk, 7 minutes driving. And I walked over there, and I guess nobody walks. I guess nobody of color walks. I had a green backpack on, my monster headphones. I'm listening to my drum, the bugle corps music. And I saw a cop go this way, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I turned around, came this way again. I'm like, oh, he's gone twice. You recognize these things as who we are, people of color. You're paying attention to these things. You're in a strange place. And then he goes and parks. I'm like, oh, he's pulling over. I know what's going to happen now. I go over to where he is, and the house is only another 7 minutes walking down the street. And it's upscale. It's the 30-acre estate. It's beautiful places. He goes, what are you doing? I see you walking. I'm like, yeah, I'm walking to go do my shows and I'm doing this stuff. Oh, yeah, okay. He was nice. He goes, hey, do you have ID on you? I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, here's my ID. Oh, your ID's expired. I'm like, yeah, because I'm getting a new one in Las Vegas. I can't have one in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. So I use this one to fly on. He goes, do you want to ride to your place? I'm like, no, it's just down the street. I'm just walking down the street. It's Jimmy Adams. You know who Jimmy Adams? No. I'm like, he's Don King's bodyguard, Don King's best friend, the boxing promoter. Hey, what are you doing over here? I'm going to go do our shows. I'm going to be living over here. You want to ride down there? I'm like, no. And I'm like, first of all, what cop asked you for a ride? Not once, not twice. He asked me 3 times. And I said, what is this about? And I said, no, I'm going down the street. I'm fine. And then, so he let me go and he pulled into the driving lot, the next one. And these are these long driveways in Franklin, Tennessee, because it's upscale. And I'm walking down there and I would walk back and I'm like, why is that cop car parked in the neighborhoods thing? I guess he didn't believe me because I hopped the fence because I didn't have the code to the gate, but I hopped the fence. Obviously, I know where I'm going. I wouldn't be just walking down the middle of a beautiful thing if I didn't know anybody, right? And then so the next day, I'm going to do the shows because I was setting up the shows. I took a Lyft that day and the guy picked me up from Orange County, California. And I'm telling him the story of what I'm doing, why I'm going to go shoot our shows for Hollywood Film Festival and things that we're doing. And then the guy goes, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I go, I wonder if the cop will be in the neighborhood. As he's pulling it up, dropping me off, the cop is in the next door's driveway, the long driveway. I think he was looking for me to walk by so he could stop me. And I hopped the fence and I'm walking down the long driveway. I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. And I'm like, yeah, I beat you this time. Thank goodness I took a Lyft. And I never forgot that. Till this day, AJ, I ask everybody, I don't care if you're white or black, would you have gotten into that cop's car? They go, no. I go, well, why? Because I want to know. I know why I didn't, because I had 6 shows to shoot the next day. If I hadn't shot in those shows, we wouldn't have 7.3 million views today. Those are the shows that we shot. That's why I tell that story to people.
Wow.
Imagine that. So you know what it's like to do that. And then I told Jimmy Adams, and then a cop, I think it was the same cop, followed his wife out as we were shooting the shows. And then I told him the story because I didn't tell him what was going on because of his health.
Wow.
Think about that. What do you think would have happened if I gotten into that car? Because I still don't know. I wasn't going to, but I didn't know. However, I kept thinking, I got shows to do the next day. I better not take that chance. It's only down the street. I walked this far. It's not a big deal. I never forgot that. And had I had not done those shows, we wouldn't have the millions of views that we have today. Think about that.
Wow. Yeah, I probably would have done the same thing that you did. You get in that car, you don't know what's going to happen.
And then, because I kept thinking, well, am I getting in the front seat, right? Because I didn't do anything. Is he going to let me in the front seat? That was what my thinking was, because I was minding my own business with my headphones on. And so the next time I got stopped walking in Beverly Hills, down Beverly Boulevard, I guess I was walking too fast. Well, I walk fast. I got places to go. And my office was over there, so was my mailbox. And then an undercover cop came and dropped in front of me, got out. He goes, why are you walking so fast? I'm like, I'm walking to my office. Where's your office? Over here. I go, well, why are you asking? Oh, we've been having carjackings on Gregory Street. I'm like, where's Gregory Street? Gregory Street's over there. I'm like, well, why would I be walking if you're having carjackings? And then the guy got back in his car and drove away. It screwed up my head because he didn't have to do anything else. He just got in his car and walked away. And I never forgot that. And then in your documentary, I think you mentioned I had a rental car driving down Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly. Rental car had tinted back windows. It wasn't my car, it was a rental car. The cop stopped me. He said, oh, you're not supposed to have tinted windows. I'm like, it's a rental car. I got a ticket for a rental car that wasn't mine because it had tinted windows in the back. To this day, I don't have tinted windows because of that.
Wow.
So your movie, I could relate to. I tell these stories to people because when you're an influence of what we're doing now, these are the stories that need to be told, right?
That's
And
right.
these are stories that aren't even in your documentary, but I could relate to that. It got my attention. I was like, oh, wow, he's telling the story of what anybody can go through now. That's pretty deep.
Yeah, I've had so many people from all over the country share similar stories, and it's almost as if you're no, it's not almost as if it is. If you're Black in America, there's literally uh, no refuge from racism. We can be driving, walking, eating, sleeping, breathing, and experience racism, not just from the police, but from so many different facets of society. There's no refuge. We have to. Uh, it's almost like another skin, that we have our Black skin, and then we have this coating, that just attracts this hate for no reason whatsoever. And no matter what we're doing, no matter what station in life we hold, we're subject to it, and it is tiring and it's traumatic, and it's time for it to stop. That's why we need to have these kinds of discussions, because people need to realize that um, 400 years is enough. It's got to end.
There's one interesting thing in there, and I'm going to use this because I never had an excuse if they stopped you these days, because these days have changed now. I haven't been stopped in a long time, but in general, it could happen tomorrow. You just never know. There's no guidelines and there's no time limit on this. But the thing about that is I'm on the phone with my attorney and he's listening to everything that's being said. I'm using that. That's a brilliant line. And I'm going to use that no matter who is on the phone. Just say you're my attorney and that you're listening. Because at that point, what happened in that documentary, not to give a lot away,
Yeah, that statement may have saved my life that day, because when I left the first officer, I left him in a state of befuddlement. He had no idea how to deal with me because I knew my rights. He had no idea what to say or what to do next, because I was more fluent in the Constitution and all of the amendments that protect us than he was. He got so flustered with our conversation that he went back to his own car and refused to get out of it. And I had to go over and say, sir, if we're done here, I'm going to continue my walk. And I had to say it over and over because I did not want to have him, mistakenly think that I was doing anything other than that. Like, I didn't want him to think I was fleeing the scene, right?
yeah,
And so I made sure that he knew exactly what I was saying. And when I continued my walk, I called my attorney because I was upset. And I had gone through something similar just a few months earlier where I was driving and stopped for no reason. And he handled that with one phone call. It was squashed. But this time it really shook me, because that was whole nother level stuff. Go for a walk in your own community and all of a sudden you're being accused of breaking into homes. And so when I got my attorney on the phone, he said, just get out of there. I'm glad you're safe. And no sooner did he say that than two other cars and the first officer. So now it's three police cars,
wow.
three police officers rushing over to me. And this is in the film, but the thing is that when they were rushing over to me, one hand on a taser, another looking like he's going to tackle me, and the corporal, who was the supervisor, coming nose to nose with me. He could have kissed me if he wanted to, yelling at me, was there a misunderstanding back there, over and over. And when I said those words, my attorney's on speakerphone and he hears everything, they literally stopped in their tracks, took a step back, and looked confused, like, okay, what do we do now? Because, we've been caught. And I believe that having the ability to call my attorney and let them know that may have saved my life.
That's pretty deep. That's one of the most important lines that anybody, and it doesn't even matter if you're a person of color these days now, it's happening to other people, it's happening to Asians now. So that's an important line that I'm always going to use because I always was looking for something. What do you say when you're stopped and you have your hands on the driver's side or out what do you say? Because they can still do whatever they want. But that line that you created now should be a tagline. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to start saying that on my shows because, again, I haven't talked about this stuff on my shows. And I have 12 co hosts, and they're all women. Two of them are people of color. We have not talked about this stuff, not on purpose, only because one, nobody's asked us, but two, we stayed away from that. But three, also, it took something like this movie to bring it out. So I can't wait to have you come into our studio in Hollywood because I'm going to have the girls in talking about this because it's that important. Talk about how you made this film. How long did it take? Because I always tell people it takes an average of 7 years to make a documentary. You got to raise the money. It's not easy. You got to do the marketing. Talk about that aspect of things.
Yeah, that's so true. It's not as easy as, just taking a bunch of shots and slapping edits together and putting a film out. It's I joke and say it's the closest thing a man can experience to giving birth to a baby. If it's a male filmmaker, it's almost impossible to get a film made. It's like a minor miracle. You've got so many elements that have to come together, and funding is one element. It's one of the most difficult, of course, but there's so many elements that have to come together. And especially with a documentary film, you don't know where the story is going to go when you start. You might have an idea, but for me, Brian, when I first set out to make a film, I wanted to make a very, very angry film.
Yeah.
I just wanted to burn it all down, get people fired. I was Black Lives Matter before Black Lives Matter existed. And so I went for 2.5 years. I was on a journey of anger and frustration and pain and fear and even hatred, because during that time, I was getting more and more threats by members of the law enforcement community of physical harm, of death, just for wanting to exist without being profiled, without being harassed. And there was so much division. When I was making the film, I'd say half of the people that I thought were my friends departed, and black and white, not just white.
I'm not surprised one bit because that is what happens. And again, I knew you were making it from anger, and I knew you didn't know it was not going to turn out that way.
Yeah. It was, it wasn't until September 25th, 2014, 2.5 years later that I had a change of heart because, just God spoke to me, man. I don't know any other way to put it. I was on a beach in Hawaii, and, I mentioned that's my spiritual home. It's true. Every time I've been there my whole life, major change has happened. And on that day, on Kailua Beach, in the waters there, I felt the Aloha Spirit, man. I felt God speaking to me saying, if you want to make change, if you want things to change, you need to do it my way. You need to do it with love. And see, when you say that to people, sometimes they think immediately, oh, that's, soft and squishy. It's, it's not going to do anything. There's no power in love. How's love going to stop a cop from shooting a black man in the back if he's a racist cop, right? And so I like to tell people that's not the kind of love we're talking about. This is an action-oriented love. This is that kind of love that will drive someone to rush into a burning building to save their loved one. This is that kind of love, that hardcore, like no matter what, thick and thin. My wife and I have been married 27 years, till death do us part, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poor. And for us, there have been so many ups and downs, but we've been together like this because we have that kind of love, that we're not gonna run when things get tough. And so I talk about it as an acronym to learn about the people in your community, to open your heart to their needs, to volunteer yourself to be part of the solution in their life, and then to empower others to do the same. Those 4 steps require a lot of hard work and effort. But when you put those 4 steps into action, amazing things happen. And I've been seeing it since the film came out, initially in 2017 to private audiences and private licensing to organizations. I've seen thousands of lives change, hearts transformed, communities are being changed now as a result of it. And now that it's on broader distribution on Vudu and Google Play and Apple, now more people get a chance to see it on their own, by just renting it or buying it. But we've been working for years now with police departments and sheriff's offices and schools and ministries and other groups, even Fortune 500 companies are adopting not only the film, but the book that we created to go with it, webinars, workshops, and other tools where we're getting down to business and teaching people how to love each other using these 4 action steps, not soft and squishy, but hardcore, getting in there with the nitty gritty and working out problems. And 9 times out of 10, Brian, that first step, learn about other people, that does so much to solve so many of the problems. And then when we get that second step of letting that mind knowledge seep down into the heart, where you can feel for someone and have empathy, that's when the tears start flowing. That's when the real major changes start to happen. That's where I'm seeing 6'5", all muscle cops that have hated the community that they work in for 20 years just break down in tears and melt and repent and tell people in that room right then and there, I'm sorry and I'm going to do better. And we're seeing those kinds of changes take place. We're seeing young Black boys that have experienced really incredibly hurtful things by police say, you know what, I'm going to forgive them and I'm going to be part of the solution. And I've had young boys like that say things like, now I want to become a cop because I want to become the kind of cop that the community deserves. I want to make a difference and I want to change the law enforcement and the criminal justice system. And I'm seeing entire communities change now as a result, and this movement is taking off.
Rewind back to before you started to make the film. What happened with the community when you were being harassed? How did that finally resolve itself?
Well, for Howard County, which is, you talking about for Howard County in particular?
Yeah, when you were being harassed for that year.
Yeah. So, at first I kept it to myself because that's what we do, right? We
Yeah.
cry on a friend's shoulder, we joke about it, right? To make us feel a little bit better about it. So I mostly kept it to myself because it's painful, man. And
It is. You go through it by yourself, and some people won't understand.
Yeah. And when you have, Black friends and white friends and others, who don't look like you and maybe don't understand, most of the time you just don't even talk to them about it because they're not going to understand.
That's right.
It's like they don't care, right? I'll share one example with you. At the time, I was going to 2 different Bible studies. One was a group of Black people and one was a group of white people. And they were all friends. And these are people that are, high stations in life, CEOs and managers and so forth, right? Really no difference between the 2 groups other than the color of their skin, right? So I went to the Black Bible study. I told the guys, and they were all like, man, I can't believe that happened again. When's it going to stop? Every single hand went up. This happened, it happened to me, right? I've been through that. We were all feeling the same kind of feelings, right? I go to the white Bible study. Man, you sure you got that? You sure you got that right? Man, what did you do? Are you sure that, the officers treated you that way? It was all this doubt, right? All this blame, all this, well, you must have done something to deserve that, and then there was, the one person that said, man, I'm sorry. I can't believe you went through that. That really happens? That still happens? I'm like, yeah, man, it still happens every single day, and so 2 Bible studies. Now, the significance of that is that these were all, men of God, right?
Yeah.
And in the Bible, we're taught to love each other. We're taught to be there, to be our brother's keeper, right? But when an entire group of people has no idea about what the other group of people is going through, that's a problem. somebody's been, shirking their responsibilities of being my brother's keeper. We got to do a much better job of learning about the other, about what kind of pains we're going through, and we need to be there for each other to help solve this. So, and guess what? Walking in one march, like one friend of mine did, and said, well, I've done my part, is not going to cut it. If someone thinks that they're woke because they gave $1 to Black Lives Matter or because they walked in one march, they're not doing anything to solve the problem. People have got to get involved and really, really get committed to anti-racism and to this change that needs to take place in this country and in this world before everything gets lost.
Well, I waited for the right time, and I always said this. There's a reason why we have the numbers that we're doing. There's a reason why we have a global reach to all the stuff they're doing, whether we do it virtually, whether we do it in the studio. We're not hampered down. Last year was our best year ever because I saw all this stuff happening. And again, it goes back to 2018 when we go to Tennessee, because as you know, you're going into the South, you're going into territory that he didn't know. The person's film that I chose is my I call her my Southern mom, Edie Han. She's Elvis Presley's cousin. This is the Elvis Presley brand. I wasn't a fan of Elvis Presley. I like 3 songs. I'm part of the brand now because I went down there. All of this stuff led to all of these things. Imagine, like I said, just imagine if I got into that cop's car or I said the same thing. There wasn't going to be anybody who to help me. And we were on the corner where the traffic was going, and I was down the street from my friend. Anything could have happened because, as you know, it doesn't matter at that point where you are. And again, I ask everybody, would you have gotten into that cop's car? And even my white friend says, no. I go, well, why? He was a nice cop. And I think he was being gracious. One person said, oh, it was Southern hospitality. I'm like, really? At that point, I'm sticking to the black side of things now, because what is Southern hospitality? Southern hospitality hasn't always been Southern hospitality when you're a person of color, hasn't? Depending what county, what state you're in. So I grew up all white in a town in East Lyme, Connecticut, a town of 7,000. There was only 3 black families. So I know what it was like to do that. I sound white on the phone. So I fooled many, many people. I've been told from a publicist that I tell the story to this day in these interviews. Brian, we can't invite you because you're not a black outlet, over the phone. I still remember her to this day. She handled the film Titanic. Her second film was a film called The Wood, short for Inglewood. And I'm looking at the phone like this in my right hand. I go, I'm still going to cover the film because that's what we're supposed to do. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to be defined as a black outlet. And till this day, I've never had. So I've never covered the NAACP awards. I've never covered the Image Awards because of that. Now they're all coming to us because of the numbers that we have. So imagine having that happen. I've had the NAMM convention say, oh, I don't see anything. It doesn't say music and movie reviews anymore. I'm like, yes, because the more part covers everything. It could be fitness. It could be film. It could be social justice. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but we can't invite you. This is when I only had 2 million views at that point. I said, oh, okay, so I got to get the 10 million views before they start taking us seriously. You know the answer to that, yes. I won't stop until I get the 25 million views a day. And I still can't change the color of my skin, can we? But at least I have the outlet to talk about things like this. And that's most important.
Right. Yeah. And, you hit on something really important, Brian, which is most of us don't have that kind of reach. Most of us don't have that kind of exposure, that many people following us. And so what about the majority of Black people in America, that feel unseen, that don't feel respected, that get passed over for promotions, that get stopped for just being in Beverly Hills? By the way, that's happened to me. I even stopped going there because of that, because I knew what was going to happen when I did. So what about the majority of Black people who live every day without the ability to pick up the phone and call an attorney, or do a live stream and have a ton of people following it? Who's going to stand up for them? for us, because I'm one of them, right? I'm a filmmaker and an author, but I don't have a huge following. I'm just a guy that's doing the work that God called me to do. And certainly I do have a bit of privilege because I was able to pick up a phone and call an attorney and have him pick up. I realize that. I have a bit of privilege because I get to go on a red carpet once in a while, and I get to do interviews like this. I know that. But to the average person seeing me walking down the street, to the people that walk on the other side of the street, to the women that clutch their purse or get out of an elevator when I step in, or the security guard at the store that follows me, I'm just a black man. That's it. And because of that, I'm seen as a threat
Yeah.
or a criminal, right? That's got to stop.
I've had the same things happen, and I'll never forget. I was at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, where we did a lot of our stuff because that's where they would do it. And you're trusted if you're on that list. Well, I purposely would make sure I would get to know the security guards and people and let them know what I'm doing. But there's always that one that still looks at you like with suspicious. Now, you can't really be doing this. What are you here? You're not even really supposed to. You just know the look, the attitude. I'd get on the elevator, the guy followed me up. I'm going to go do my interviews. He gets out with me. I'm walking into the thing like I don't belong. And I turn around and I look at him and he's like outside the door, just standing there. I'm like, this guy's going to stand. I've been coming here for years. And who's this guy? This guy's a new guy, doesn't even know me. And then he goes like this to me. Hey, do you mind giving me your phone number? I'm like, why do I have to give you my phone number? I don't know who you are. And then I go, I'm going to go back in to do my interview. And if you're still here, we're going to have a problem because you don't know who I know and you don't know what I know. And I told him that. And I told him with confidence because this is my home. I've been here for a long time. I don't know who you are, but I'm not going to let you run me off from doing interviews here that I'm invited to through the studios. That was there. So when it comes to these things like that, now I use the outlet and I won't bend my knee to a lot of these people. However, no matter when you leave that event, as you know, you still have to be careful because it's still about this. And this does not change. And I tell my friends this all the time. You're a woman. You could change your hair. We can't change the color of our skin. It just is not going to happen. And we can't have a debate about it because you don't win. And I don't want to hear that. And I get real animated about that. You know what? You're going to come on my show. We're going to talk about this stuff. And you may not like the end result. And I'm not going to make you feel bad, but I'm going to tell you how it's really felt. And there'll be other people who can identify with what you're talking about because you made this film on this.
Yeah, that's true. It's deep, man. And we just have to keep pressing. There was someone who said, and I'm just going to paraphrase it because I know I'm not going to get it right, but it was someone who said that people should be happy that all we want is reconciliation and not retaliation, right? Reconciliation, not retaliation, because most of us have experienced things that just, like James Baldwin said, to be a black person in America is to be in a constant state of rage, right? If you're reasonably awake. And that's kind of, cuts to the heart of it, right? Most of us have felt that rage. And we've had to go from, situations where we're stopped by police for no reason and we're shook, but we got to go to work. We got to do the job. And not only do we have to do the job, but we got to be twice as good as everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we can't miss a beat, right?
No.
Even though we've experienced trauma, even though somebody might have pulled a gun on us, we got to go to work. We got to pay the bills. We got to be twice as good.
And a lot of times you keep it to yourself because there'll be those people that don't understand. And you mentioned it. Well, what did you do to cause this? Well, I was just here. I was doing my job. I was invited here, and you see it. And and I'll never forget this. I had this conversation with Denzel, and I think it wasn't Jamie Foxx, it was somebody else. We were there, and Denzel was giving his example for the film Debaters that he directed, and he was schooling people. And he looked in the back of the room, and he knew what we were talking about because he had been there. He goes, "I have a lot of money." He said this, first of all. He stepped into an elevator with a woman. The woman immediately started clutching her purse. And before he walked out, he goes, I'm sorry, but you know what? I think I have just a little bit more money than you do. And he turned around and left. And then he
Mm.
also said this, just because we're people are prominent, we still have to be careful when we're driving back from the functions. And that's why you have those drivers pick you up and take you, because of these situations that can happen. It is
Yeah.
pretty deep when it comes to that. What do you tell people where to go to get advice when you have situations like that?
Well, most of us will go to friends and family, our support system, but I want people to go deeper than that. And I'm telling people right now, because we've created this movement that now has dozens of volunteers and a really, really great core team, including some former law enforcement people, some peace officers. I'm telling people, come to us and work with us and work this out with us, because love is the answer. This movement, this organization is built for this. This is all we do every day. We deal with these kinds of issues and we teach people. We started as an organization to improve police community relations. But now at the core of our work is simply teaching people how to love themselves and love others. And if you think about it, we're never taught the intricacies of how to love, not in elementary school, not in middle school, not in high school, not in college, not in professional certifications that come after college. We're never taught how to love our neighbor. And that is the most basic principle of all. It's that one thing that we should learn how to do. And so that's what we do. We're teaching people how to love. And part of that is teaching people how to forgive and move on as well. And the deeper we go with someone, the more they open up, and I see those heart transformations, and I see, it's better than any diversity, equity, or inclusion program out there, because most of them treat symptoms and are, very kind of textbook oriented, process oriented. This is about breaking down things at the cellular level and getting people to understand the true meaning of what this love thing is all about. So come to us, and we'll get you set up with people around you. We've got a Love is the Answer mentoring circle program that we've created and tested, and it's working beautifully. And we're taking people through this whole process, weeks-long process. Is about 16 weeks of learning how to become a mentoring circle member. We teach you how to love yourself. We teach you how to love others. And then we pair you up with young people or returning citizens who are often discarded. We wonder why recidivism rates are so high. It's because we don't give people a break when they've done their time. So we're surrounding returning citizens with mentoring circles, students, even peace officers. We're surrounding them with mentoring circles, and a lot of times you'll have, and I was talking with a chief the other day who's doing a great job, and he recognizes that his department can get better in serving the community. They're a predominantly white police department in a predominantly Black community. And he said, it's a problem when we have officers come into this community and they've never been around Black people their whole life. They see what they see on the news and on TV shows, and they have these preconceptions, these biases that they're carrying with them. And when they go into the neighborhood and they see a Black person, and the first thing out of their mouth is, yo, homeboy, automatically a wall's going to go up, because I don't want to hear that from a peace officer. How about good morning, sir, or hey, how you doing? But I don't want someone who doesn't know me call me yo, homeboy, come here, right? And so there's a disconnect in cultures, right? And people are acting out based on what they may have seen on television or on the news or in their favorite television show, thinking that they're doing the right thing. And so we're surrounding, peace officers now with people that can mentor them and teach them how to love and serve and protect the community in which they're working. And so if someone needs help in this area, and For one, I'm saying everybody needs help in this area, even me. I need mentors. I need people to look after me and watch my back and console me when I'm down and admonish me when I'm wrong, right? So come to us and we'll help you get to that next level of understanding about, what it really means to love your neighbor.
Are police departments getting better, you think, besides the ones you're working with? What do you think that's the case in your opinion of what we've been seeing?
There's about 18,000 police departments in the United States. I don't think they're getting better.
Right.
Often we're seeing box checking. We're seeing knee-jerk reactions when they get found out, when something makes it to the news, and they pledge to go through an anti-racism training or a DEI training, cultural sensitivity training. But what they do is they schedule the training. People sit there with their arms folded, they're on their cell phones, or they're not paying attention, and they're checking the box. Okay, we did that. Everything's good until the next incident, right? And that's what we're seeing. So no, police departments in the United States, the whole system, the criminal justice system as a whole, because we're talking also prisons, we're talking parole and probation and other things. It needs a major, major overhaul. Do I believe that it all should be defunded and burned down? No, I'm not that guy. I believe that we need policing. I believe that we need a solid criminal justice system. But I also don't think that America should lead the world in incarceration. I think we can be better than that. Like my dear late friend Elijah Cummings, Congressman Elijah Cummings, often said, we're better than this. We can do better than this. And so transparency is needed, and a humbleness of heart is needed. And police departments and other organizations within the criminal justice system, it is ripe and overdue for a change. And I'm just inviting them in the way that I know how to open up and be transparent. And we're trying to provide safe spaces for them to do that, so that we can train them on what it really means to protect and serve. We got a long way to go. I think out of those 18,000 police departments, and I might catch heat for saying this, but it's true, maybe 10% of them are getting it right. Maybe. That's a lot of police departments that are getting it wrong, but that mirrors the rest of society as well. It's just that bad doctors, who treat Black people differently than white people, they don't have guns and shoot us, but they hurt us in other ways. How about teachers, the educational system? I'm one of the students that was a C student because I just couldn't relate to a lot of the things that they were trying to teach, and and they had me pegged as someone who would only amount to so much because of the color of my skin, and so many times, and I've experienced this recently. I went to a high school to show my film and talk with the students, and the students were just not paying attention. And the teacher, 15 minutes into the film, a teacher said, "Would you like me to stop the film so you can yell at them?" I said, "Why would I want to yell at them?" I said, "Nah, keep the film running." And see, these were teachers and even school police in that particular school who had no relationship with the students. I could tell from the moment I walked in,
Right.
the vibe that yeah, the students, it was like they were in prison. Even the building itself had no windows. It was dark in physicality and in spirit. And so I said, "No, I'm not going to yell at these kids. I'm going to go talk to them. You keep this film running." And I went to every group of 4, 5, 10 students who were on their phone, texting, talking to each other, weren't paying attention. And I just sat down with them, introduced myself, told them why I came from California to Connecticut to spend time with them, that I love them, that I wanted the best for them. And I asked them questions about them, and they opened up. And I said, "Will you do me just one favor? There's some time left on the film. Would you watch it so you can give me some feedback? Because I really want to know what you think about it." And one by one, I did that with each group. And by the time I was done, every student was paying attention. And when the film was over, the questions that I got from these students were brilliant. These kids just wanted somebody to love on them, you know. And I even had a young man, one of the students, come up to me afterwards, and he thanked me. He said it was the first time anyone has ever shown them love and respect. First time. Think
Part of
about that.
Connecticut was that?
That was Bridgeport.
I grew up in East Lyme, Waterford, Connecticut. I know exactly what it was like. Now imagine me growing up in the 70s in an all-white town with only 3 Black families of 7,000. That's just in East Lyme, where we had 7 private beaches and 1 state beach. And I'll never forget, we're all friends till this day. We were very, very close because of my relationship in the marching band and the drum and bugle corps. That from that, we all became friends. I came in from a mixed school and went to the all-white school, and I started changing things around. I didn't know what I was doing until years later. I'm like, but I was in a drum corps, so we were better. And I just wanted to make our band better, and that band did become better. But the band director saw enough in me. He saw something in me. He said, Brian, you weren't supposed to be going to Jamaica with us, but what you did to come in to change things around, you're coming to Jamaica with us. And that's what made, for the 3 years, our whole high school band great. So our high school band was great. And then on the reverse side of that, there was nobody Black on the football team. So the high school football coach said, hey, I want to make you one of a running back. I'm like, I'm not going to be playing football. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the marching band, the drum and bugle corps. I'm going to be in the world of music. And I guess no one had ever said no to the high school football coach. So we didn't have a relationship, but he came to me because of the color of my skin. And then imagine this, same school, the high school basketball coach, all white. Now this is Larry Bird and this is Magic Johnson at that point. I was the only Black guy on an all-white high school team who didn't play. Imagine that. But I played against all the other people from all the schools and I was good. But the coach didn't think I was any good. So I was the token who sat on the bench. And after a while, he wouldn't even let me quit. Imagine that. So I should be screwed up, but I took those experiences and I applied them to what I'm doing still to this day. Now I get a chance to tell the stories. And it goes back to your film, why it's important, because I can take your film and apply it to what I'm doing on our TV and our radio shows now, because it's that important. And that lets me get the word out through our viewerships in a different way. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the way we approach everything, you know, obviously love is the answer. That's at the core of everything that we do, right? We are providing safe spaces. And that's important, because oftentimes in today's cancel culture, you say one thing and, you know, it's over, right? So people are very hesitant, especially people in law enforcement. You know, they're cops, they're police officers. They're not peace officers these days. You know, we're now, in all fairness to them, we're heaping way too much on their shoulders, and we're not giving them enough support. And that's one of the things that we've worked hard at, is giving them the support that they need as well. They're hurt, and hurt people hurt people. And so, you know, we're providing these safe spaces where these courageous conversations can take place. And sure, the tears are going to flow, you know, and the pain is going to be there, but we're creating these spaces where people can heal from this trauma and come together as ohana, you know, which is Hawaiian for family and extended family. And when people come into that space, you know, I will put a lei around an officer's neck and say, welcome, my brother, welcome, my sister, my niece, my nephew, my aunt, my uncle. These are people that I've just met, you know, but I'm putting them into this space of, you know, I love you and I want the best for you. And part of what is best for you is to learn how to treat me, right? Because that karmic experience of treating people poorly comes back to hurt the person that you know is the offender. And so peace officers are walking around with pain, with, you know, not only the the pain of their childhood and their adult life. But when they get on the job and they're taught that the community is the enemy, when they're taught that you've got to go and profile certain people because of the way they look, their supervisors expect this. It's not written in the manual, but I've talked with hundreds of peace officers that have told me the truth, and some of them are in my film, and some of them have spoken out for the very first time. In my film, you'll see white and black officers telling you the real deal about what policing is all about in America. But they're also showing us the ways that it can become better. Chief Melvin Russell, for example, who's a former Baltimore City police officer, 40 years. He rose through the ranks and became one of their chiefs there. They pretty much bounced him out because he didn't want to treat people bad. He made his mark by getting chaplains and other people in the community to come alongside peace officers and work with them and teach them. And he saw murder rates drop and all kinds of great things happen in his community, but his supervisors wanted him to police with a heavy hand. Didn't want the police and the community to come together like family, wanted there to be friction, you know, and you know, there was money and other things driving those decisions, you know, because the more conflict there was, the more money they would
you're
get.
gonna get.
Yeah, the more raises they would get for overtime and other things by manufacturing this divide, right? And so we need, everybody needs to see this film, you know, to understand what it's really like, and then also understand, you know, how there are people like Chief Mel, who's now our senior VP of criminal justice relations. You know, he's helping us pave the way for this change. Lieutenant Tim McMillan, who's retired now, and Andrew Collins, even, who he was a white officer who framed a black man, and that man was sent to prison on charges for things that he didn't do. And Andrew, he came to the point where he admitted what he had done, and he wound up going to prison because of the things that he had done, not only to Jamel, but to other people. And the beautiful thing about that story is when they both were out, when Jamel came out and then Andrew came out later, and they met up in the community, I'm going to, you know, this is spoiler alert, but, you know, this is important. Andrew was forgiven by Jamel, and they wound up becoming dear friends, like brothers. And they started doing ministry work together in communities all over the country about reconciliation, about the power of love and forgiveness. And the journey's not over for them, because Andrew is now trying to help Jamel navigate getting out of prison again, because he was, in my opinion, and in opinion of many others who know this case, the system came after him because he talked about what was happening in that town of Benton Harbor, and he's in prison again for some things that he shouldn't be in prison for. And Andrew is the one who is right there by his side trying to help him get out. I mean, it's totally oppressive, man. You know, people, there's such dark forces that don't want to let this hatred go, and they want the divide to continue, and they'll do anything. They'll ruin anyone's life to get what they want. But we got to be stronger than that. And I believe that love is more powerful than hate, that light will always overcome darkness. And that if enough of us step up and be willing to be, you know, vulnerable and transparent and work through these things and get better at loving people, I believe we can turn this whole thing around and you know, make it the way it's supposed to be, with people loving each other.
Last question, give your social media links and where it's playing.
Thank you. So to see the film, go to walkingwhileblack.com, and you'll see buttons at the top of the homepage about where you can rent or buy the film. There's also another website that's loveistheanswermovement.com. And that's where you can learn about all the things that we're doing with this movement, like the 3rd annual Love is the Answer Day coming up September 17th, where there's going to be people getting together to create murals in all 50 states and on every continent on the same day murals that say love is the answer, with depictions of what's going on in their community that is bringing love to life. Things like community gardens, where in Yeadon, Pennsylvania, they just broke ground on the world's first love garden, where police and other community members are coming together to grow fruits and vegetables and relationships that are going to be changing everything. And shout out to Chief Chachi, Anthony Paparo. He goes by Chachi. He's become a dear friend. He's the chief of that Yeadon Police Department that made history with that first love garden. Now we're going to have them popping up all over the country and someday all over the world. So there's all kinds of ways that people can get involved in what we're doing. See the film at walkingwhileblack.com, join the movement at loveistheanswermovement.com, and do the work with us and be the change that you want to see.
All right, AJ, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on Movie Reviews and More. We have to get you into the studio to talk about this, because our private studio in Hollywood at the Mike House, there's a lot of people that, first of all, need to see this, but they also need to hear it from you too. And it doesn't matter how old you are, as we all know, everybody needs to see this. Everybody needs to hear it in a different voice. So with that, I'm Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, and I always say this when I leave. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it, and we will see you next week.